partnering to support job seekers with traumatic brain injury. And our special guests are Maggie Budd and then Subrea Calhoun. So I will turn it over to them.
All right, thanks, Antonio. I'm going to share my screen here so that y'all can view our presentation. Okay, so yeah, as Antonio mentioned, my name is Maggie Budd, and I'll let Subrea introduce herself briefly.
Hello, everyone. I'm Subrea Calhoun. I am a rehabilitation counselor with employment and independence for people with disabilities. Some may know us as vocational rehabilitation.
Yeah. And my name is Maggie. I work with the Brain Injury Support Services at Community Partnerships as an intake specialist and case manager. So this presentation is going to be a collaboration between EIPD and CPI, or Community Partnerships, to discuss the importance of community reintegration and how our organizations support individuals with brain injuries in reintegrating into the community through vocational services. So our learning objectives for today, first we're going to talk about community reintegration and understanding the impacts of brain injury on a person's ability to reintegrate into the community. We're also going to talk about how employment plays into that. Then we're going to talk about how EIPD and CPI work together to increase community reintegration following brain injury. And then finally, we'll hear from a brain injury survivor who has worked with CPI and EIPD and is now working in the community. And we'll hear a little bit about what that experience has meant for him and what lessons he's learned along the way. So first, we'll talk about employment and how that plays into community integration, as well as the impacts that brain injury can have and how that can specifically show up in a workplace setting. So community integration is much broader than just employment, but employment does play a large part in that. Unfortunately, though, folks with disabilities are much less likely to experience the benefits of employment than those without disabilities. So in 2024, the U.S. Department of Labor found that the unemployment rate for people with disabilities was 8.8%, compared to that of people without disabilities, which was at 4.6%. So you can see that there's nearly double the unemployment rate for people with disabilities. And we'll talk now about some of the impacts that can have. So there are lots of different benefits of community integration that employment can play a role in. And so some of those include social impacts, so broadening of a social circle, increasing connectedness, friendships, things of that nature. There's certainly a financial benefit to having employment as well. That one's probably one of the more obvious benefits of employment, but definitely important to many people we work with. Additionally, there are emotional benefits of employment. So folks who might find purpose in being part of something bigger than themselves, might find benefits in the routine and structure of having somewhere to be every day and people to be involved with. There are also health benefits in terms of accessing healthcare and also accessing other resources in the community, such as nutrition support or recreational activities that contribute to overall mental and physical health. Going off of that, the recreational benefits can have health impacts again, but they also can have just impacts on quality of life and a person's ability to kind of enjoy the community in which they live. There are also educational benefits to community integration, so being able to access higher education or training opportunities that might help further somebody's employment opportunities. Civic engagement is another big part of it, so making sure that people's voices are heard through voting or other civic opportunities in their communities. And then finally, for those who have spiritual or religious or faith practices, ensuring that they have the ability to access places where they're able to practice and participate in those things that are important to them. So now we'll talk a little bit about some common impacts of brain injuries and how they show up in a workplace. So we'll talk about them in three categories. The first is cognitive, the second is emotional, social, or behavioral impacts, and the last is physical. And before we jump into this, I do want to just reiterate, of course, that brain injuries can take so many different forms. And so this list of impacts that we're about to go through is not comprehensive and is not necessarily representative of every person with a brain injury. But that being said, some common cognitive impacts that we see include impaired short or long-term memory. We can also see difficulty with learning new things, whether that's due to attention or processing speed or things like that. We can also see communication concerns. This might look like aphasia or difficulty with understanding or verbalizing language. It also could be, again, just difficulty with word recall. We can also see mental confusion or difficulty thinking and processing information quickly. We might see a shorter attention span and trouble concentrating. We can also notice executive changes like difficulty with planning, organizing, or problem solving that wasn't present before the brain injury. Sometimes we can see lack of self-awareness come up, and we can also see hypersensitivity or sensory overload to things like light or sound or busy, fast-paced environments. So in the workplace, this can show up in a lot of ways. You could see longer training times being required or more time to complete job tasks compared to someone without a brain injury. We might also notice that someone with a brain injury has difficulty communicating with managers, coworkers, or customers, and might need additional support in order to do that well. We can also see folks with brain injuries having trouble adhering to a work schedule or difficulty with timeliness, again, unless those compensatory strategies are put into place. And then we might also notice some sensory overload leading to fatigue or need for breaks. And again, these are just some of the things that can come up in a workplace due to cognitive challenges from a brain injury. Some emotional, social, and behavioral impacts that we see from brain injuries include aggression or anger and irritability. We can also see increased impulsivity, and that can lead to inappropriate social behaviors, things like that. We might also see some mental health symptoms coming up, like depression or anxiety, maybe mood swings, or even personality changes. So in the workplace, this can show up, again, in many different ways. It might be challenges with handling a fast-paced or a stressful work environment and difficulty coping with work-related stress and anxiety. We might also notice, again, some of those interpersonal concerns when dealing with or relating to supervisors, coworkers, and customers. And then lastly, in terms of some physical impacts, these can be very wide-ranging. We might see things like balance and coordination problems or dizziness. We could also see fatigue and sleeping issues. You might notice decreased muscle strength, weakness, loss of motor control or trouble walking, or even hemiparesis or other types of paralysis. Some folks also experience seizures or headaches and migraines. And then we can also see sensory changes like loss or changes in hearing or vision. So again, in the workplace, this might look a lot of different ways. There could be increased fatigue that comes with managing these physical impacts in the workplace. You might also see an inability to operate certain machinery or equipment. There might be accommodations required for hearing or vision changes, and potentially a modified workstation or other types of assistive technology could be helpful. So now we'll talk a little bit about community partnerships and our brain injury support services program. So Community Partnerships, or CPI, is a nonprofit agency that serves about 1,500 clients annually in North Carolina. Our offices are located in Greenville, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, and Charlotte. And the goal of Community Partnerships Brain Injury Support Services program is to help those who have sustained a brain injury with securing gainful employment. We do this in 4 different service areas, which we'll talk about a little bit more on the next slide. But the first is cognitive rehabilitation. The second is case management. The next one is therapeutic interventions. And lastly, we use vocational readiness interventions. So that first service area, cognitive rehabilitation, is going to target things like memory, attention, impulsivity, those executive functions like problem solving and decision making, social skills, communication, all those sorts of cognitive impacts that we talked about earlier. So this is going to be kind of looking at two different things. It's going to be restoring cognitive functions that was lost from the brain injury, and then also developing compensatory strategies to make up for any deficits that remain. Our second service area is case management. So this is going to be helping people connect to resources in the community that will help meet their needs for things like transportation or housing, any kind of medical services, dental services, nutrition, and then also things like leisure and social activities to help, again, promote that overall community integration. The third service area is occupational information, which is the vocational readiness and workforce preparation that we talked about. So this might begin with career exploration and helping people understand what kinds of jobs they might be interested in and good at. We also provide training on job search techniques and job retention skills. We'll help people build resumes and cover letters and learn how to apply for jobs, things like that. And then our last service area is therapeutic interventions. And this is really aimed at helping people adjust to disability and develop the self-care strategies that will help them to be successful in the workplace. So there are 3 phases to the BIS program. The first is an assessment phase, and we start with this to get a good sense of a person's skills, abilities, and areas for growth. We take the results of the assessment phase and use that to design a plan for the next 2 phases of the program. So the first, or that second phase, is the cognitive rehabilitation and career exploration phase. This is where we're going to help people with those 4 service areas I just described. So we'll be doing cognitive rehab exercises, we'll be providing case management services, some therapeutic interventions, and the occupational information services as well. And then the last phase of the program is employment and job retention. So this will be helping people as they actually go to apply for jobs, go on interviews, and begin working. And our staff can be involved in all aspects of that, so we can actually assist with interviews, and we can even come on site and help people get trained and adjust to their job for just, again, to make sure that they're successful long term. The eligibility for our program, you must have a documented brain injury. This can be an acquired brain injury or a traumatic brain injury. You have to be at least 16 years old and have any kind of vocational goal. Again, even if your vocational goal is pretty broad, we can help you narrow that down and get more specific about what you're looking for, but just having any kind of goal in mind. So in order to get connected to BIS, the first step is to connect with your local EIPD office and work with the counselor there to develop a plan for employment. Then if the Brain Injury Support Services program would be an appropriate part of that plan for employment, then your EIPD counselor will refer you to our program. And we're going to hear from Subrea next about a little bit more about EIPD's process and what that would look like.
Awesome. Thank you, Maggie. So we'll go ahead and jump into EIPD, who we are, what services that we do provide. Now, our objectives will be just talking about our mission, and then we'll jump into some services that we do offer job seekers, how we develop or make someone eligible for our services. We'll talk about process and then our timeline, and then how we will get referrals to our agency, and then how we will refer over to Brain Injury Support Services. All right, our mission, we strive to promote competitive integrated employment and independence for individuals who have a disability, and that's through client partnership and community leadership. Now, what we mean by competitive integrated employment is just helping individuals that have a documented disability obtain competitive pay, reintegrate back into the community. Now, how do we assist job seekers with disabilities? We first look at how can we help an individual prepare for work. We look at, helping that individual find a job. and then returning back to work. Let's say that they've left for a surgery, but they want to return back to the same job or return back, to working in general. We can assist with that, helping an individual maintain the job that they're currently working on. And then if somebody wants a career advancement, kind of explore some options of what they want to do and how we can, help them reach that goal. We do focus on the individual's abilities and then new possibilities. And we can do that by exploring that person's interests, their abilities, their aptitudes. We just establish that job goal with them. We'll sit down, talk about, what are they wanting to do? What is their long-term goal and what is their, career goal? And then we also develop a plan and then deliver those services that, we can assist with. Now, like I said on the previous slide, if anyone has, no work experience, they come into our office and say, hey, I'm not sure what I want to do. We will sit down and identify a career goal. But let's say that they still aren't sure. We do offer vocational evaluation assessments. That's when they'll sit down with an evaluator, kind of do an assessment to assess, what their interests are, and then how we can, find jobs in the labor market that align with that. And then if we have someone who's returning to work, like I was saying, that they've left for a surgery, they want to do the same job, we can look at some modifications or accommodations that we can assist with to help them return back to that job. Or if they want to go a different job route or career route, we can, talk about how we can assist with that. And then for someone who is at risk of losing their current job, we can kind of step in and be that two-way communicator between the employer as well as the client, figure out what can be done to help them keep that current position. Now, our process and timeline. It is a lengthy process, but it's very beneficial and it's a great outcome. Our first step is the referral, and then we jump into our application. Then we jump into eligibility. After eligibility, we then develop a plan. That's our individualized plan for employment. And then we'll initiate some services on that plan. And then our ultimate end goal is a 26 successful employment outcome. So a little bit more about our timeline. Like I said, with the referral, that could be someone who has called in and they said that they really want to work, they have a disability, and how can we as an agency assist? That referral process takes about 21 days. That allows for a counselor or a casework technician to get into contact with this person and figure out what they're needing. Fill out the demographic information, all that good stuff. And then from the referral, we jump into the application. Once again, they'll sit down with a rehabilitation counselor like myself or a casework technician who works alongside the rehabilitation counselors to talk about some medical providers that the person is currently seeing. And then we'll have them sign releases for that. And then we'll also talk about some things that we'll be looking for from the client, and then some things, that they'll be looking for from us. And then we'll write up an agreement, and they'll sign our agreement of understanding that places them into, O2 status or application status. Now, between our application and eligibility, we allow for 60 days. So those releases that we've had the client sign, we'll send those off to the medical providers. Sometimes medical providers can send that to us quick. Sometimes they don't. We just allow for 60 days for us to review those documentation or those records and then, determine someone eligible. Now, if someone does receive Social Security disability or supplemental income, we can presume them eligible. However, and what I mean by presumed is like automatically they're considered eligible with our agency. However, we still need those medical records on file in order for us to move to the next step of developing a plan. So from our eligibility process and developing a plan, we allow another 90 days. However, sometimes it doesn't, we do not go that full 90 day, but, we do allow for that just in case. With the individualized plan, we'll talk about a job goal, kind of key in on one thing that we can work towards. We'll also talk about some services, which we'll talk about later on in some other slides. We'll talk about some services that we can assist with. And then from our plan, we then, move towards the successfully finding a job, or if somebody wants to school, figuring out how we can go back to school. And it's really on a case-by-case basis. Every case is different. Every case is not going to always have the same, services on them. But with a successful outcome, we do wait for 90 days while the client is on the job, just to make sure that they, receiving, the amount of hours that they need, the pay that they're liking, and they're overall thinking that this is something long term. And then we'll look into a successful closure on that case. All right, so we do partner with a lot of different service providers, local and national employers, workforce systems such as NC Works. We partner well with them. If we do have some clients that could benefit from, signing in and working with them as well, we'll send over there. And then we also work with a lot of different community partners, brain injury support services being one of those. And with brain injury support, they'll sit down, be more interactive with the client, doing resume development, those job interview skills, and all that good stuff. Now, if someone doesn't qualify for services or community partners, we do have an in-house person, and they are referred to as business relations representatives who also kind of do the similar resume development, job interview skills, kind of helping the individual get prepared and ready for putting in applications. And then if they need someone on the job with them, they can stand in. Now, our eligibility. We look at a lot of different things when it comes to eligibility. But first, the person has to be a legal resident, and they have to be at least 14 years of age. We have a group of transition counselors who are currently working in the schools, assisting with, the school-age students. And then there's also counselors who are working with the adults, such as myself. I work with TBI, physical, and mental health. Another thing that we look at is the individual actually interested in pursuing employment? They have to be, actively participating and showing us that they're wanting to go back to work. We look at if the individual is facing any barriers when it comes to employment, and then how can we step in and reduce and eliminate those barriers? Some examples, there's a lot of different diagnoses that we could use. It really just depends on those limitations that come with that diagnosis. But a few that we really see on a day-to-day is like TBIs, arthritis, amputations, visual or vision impairment, visual and hearing impairment, anxiety, depression, or if someone has a learning disability, autism, but those are just a few. All right, an overview of some of our services. So we offer a lot of different services. This is just a handful. First, counseling and guidance. We do not offer a therapy session, but we do offer a counseling moment. We'll sit down with the client, kind of figure out, hey, what are some things that you're facing, some issues that you're facing, and how can we assist? And if we can figure out some coping skills, we'll figure those out with them. But if they need more, additional resources, we'll research those resources and provide that to the client. Benefits counseling, we do partner, especially in our office, in the Greenville office, we partner with ECVC, Easter Seals, and then we have someone in-house as well who will sit down with that client, kind of talk about, how many hours they can work, days per week that they can work without their Social Security or supplemental income being impacted by working. We do offer training opportunities, if that's like vocational training that they want to go back to school for, post-secondary, let's say that they want to go back for a bachelor's or an associate's or master's, doctoral. We can do research into that and see if that's something feasible for that client, and then if we can assist with paying for that. Diagnosis, treatment, and impairments. We do, work with the client, make sure that they're currently in treatment. If they need to receive treatment, like I said, we'll do some referring out and getting them into treatment. Rehabilitation technology. We have assistive technologists who work with our clients as well to kind of figure out if they need some additional gadgets, like a specialized keyboard if they're doing office work, if they're needing mats to stand on. So whatever they think will be best fit for that client on the job to help them do that job, they'll let us know, and then we'll figure out if we can sponsor that for the client. And then job search assistance, that's where we're looking at putting in those applications, finding that job for that client. Now, referrals between ourselves and brain injury support services. To get referred to our agency, you can be referred by a teacher, counselor, doctor, or parent. However, you can also be a self-referral. You can walk into our office or give us a call and kind of tell us, what you're experiencing, what disability that you may have, and what services you're looking for and needing from us. And then we do have a lot of different offices across the state. So we do have a website that you can look to see which county you're in and which office serves that county. And there are listed numbers here as well for the Western region, Central, and then the Eastern region. If you contact those numbers, once again, and tell them what county you're in and that you're interested, they'll refer you to the office that covers that particular area. Now, to get referred over to brain injury support services, once again, you have to be determined eligible by our agency and go through the process, the eligibility process, developing that plan. After that plan has been developed, that's when we can refer over to brain injury support. And the counselor will do a detailed, descriptive referral form, documenting the diagnosis. If there is medical records, the psych or neuropsych evaluations, especially with TBIs, we need those in order to send that over to brain injury support. Benefit counseling information, if we do have that on file, we'll usually send that over. And then that vocational goal, that job goal, we'll have it written out. And then sometimes, clients aren't 100% sure. So we'll have the main goal that we've agreed on, but then, there's other goals as well if they are interested in other employment, if that first initial goal does not work out. And then we'll also provide a copy of that individual as planned with those services that we will provide on there as well.
All right, so now I'm just putting our contact information up here, and we'll have a brief time for questions before we hear our consumer testimonial. So I'm not sure if there were any questions in the chat that we can answer. We'd love to do that now. Oh, sorry. I actually can't see the chat, I'm realizing. So maybe I'm not sure if Subrea or Molly or Antonio, if y'all
There's
see
no
any.
questions right now, but I do
Okay.
have a question.
Okay.
What is the proper medical form to submit to you guys to receive services? Is it a FL2 or just a statement from a provider with the patient's diagnosis? Like, what's the proper form of documentation to provide for the referral?
So with our agency, we have our own form that has like demographic information, but if you feel like, someone needs to be referred to us, you can always give us a call as well. We'll write down their information, and then we'll contact that person directly and then completely finish filling out that form. But yeah, there's nothing really. Sometimes we send off our referral forms to different providers. However, if a provider doesn't have it, you can always contact our office directly.
Okay. And I have a second question. I was paying attention. It's a great presentation. So I know you guys said you help with bachelor's and master's degrees. Is there like certain qualifications is it like, do they have to make a certain point financially, or is it a first come, first serve? Is it a certain like amount cap for those assistants?
Yes, that's a great question. So we do look at finances. They have to meet our financial needs, survey, qualifications, all that good stuff. And we'll talk about that too with the client. And then usually in order for us to sponsor schooling, we have to look at transcripts. Have they already been to a school before? How did they do in that program? Then we can also determine from there, is schooling best fit for them? And if they haven't been before, we'll do another vocational evaluation assessment. That's where we'll kind of do like an evaluation of how they would do with schooling. And from there, we can also determine, okay, is this program going to be the best fit for you? Or if you want to do another program, we can see if that'll be a better fit. But there's a lot of assessments. Like I said, we'll look at the transcripts to see if that's best fit for them. And then also to maintain and stay and have us sponsor, we have to get those grades every semester. And they have to make, I think, at least like a 2.5 or a 3.0. Don't quote me on that.
Serious,
I'm not
yeah.
sure. But they have to maintain a good standing. And if they don't, then they can also talk with us and we'll figure out how can we get you up to that point of, maintaining the that good academic standing. Did I answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. And I got one more question. So I know you guys said after 90 days of employment, it's considered case closed. Now, do y'all follow up like afterwards just to see like how things are going like a year down the line or so is there success stories where people have had like a second career, now like they've had over a decade plus of employment with an organization?
Usually after 90 days, the case is closed. However, if they are receiving more intensive training, and let's say that we're working with brain injury support services, brain injury support will still continue with the follow along, making sure that the client is doing well on the job. But if the client wants to come back, we offer assistance with coming back and figuring out if they need additional assistance or retention on the job. We can step in again. But usually after 90 days after the case has been closed, we're good unless they
And this
have
is
a
my
more
last
intensive.
question. My last question. So for the 14 and 15-year-olds, do they need a worker's permit to work with your program or the program will allow them for employment? Because I know sometimes if you're underage, you'll need a worker's permit. So would they need a worker's permit to be a part of your program also?
Well, at the age of 14, usually we'll start looking at some developmental skills. What can we do? Like helping them with job interview skills. Do they know how to properly dress for, going to work? Now the permit portion, I'm not sure. I don't work on transition, so I'm not quite, familiar with what they do 100%. But I know at the age of 14, we'll just start doing those developmental skills of, do you know how to properly interview? Do you know how to properly dress for an interview and all that good stuff? So we'll work on that first before looking into employment.
Thank you. That's all I have. I promise I'm gonna leave y'all alone.
No, I appreciate your questions. And I just want to jump into Subrea. Thanks so much for answering, from an EIPD point of view and just wanting to answer from a brain injury support services perspective too. So in terms of the schooling question, again, while our program is specifically vocationally focused for those individuals who their vocational goal includes going to school or going to training program. The Brain Injury Support Services program can also work with them to make sure that they're ready for being successful at school. So it might look like, cognitive rehabilitation to help them improve their attention or organization to complete schoolwork or to manage deadlines, communicating with their professors, things like that. So just wanted to just throw that in there that if a training program or schooling is part of their vocational goal with EIPD, then the BIS program can support them in that. And then the second thing I wanted to just respond in terms of the question of following the 90-day EIPD closeout. As Subrea mentioned, the Brain Injury Support Services program does do follow-along services. So for folks, even after the 90 days have ended and their EIPD case is closed, they continue to work with the Brain Injury Support Services team to provide or to receive those follow-along support. So we'll continue to check in with them and make sure things are still going well. We can step in and provide assistance kind of at any time. And that's a good segue into the consumer testimonial that we're about to hear, because this person that we're going to hear from, he has been working for, I believe he said 4 years now. So he's, well past the EIPD 90-day closeout, but he does remain in touch with our brain injury support services staff now. And he's doing really well at his job. So he doesn't need a lot of intervention, on our part, but we do continue to check in on him and just work with him and make sure that he has everything he needs to be successful and maintain his employment. So if there are no more questions right now, we can go ahead and watch. I did a brief just Q&A with him over Teams and recorded that video so you could hear from him directly. So we can go ahead and watch that. And then, of course, if there's other questions at the end, we can answer those as well. So here this goes. Okay, so now we're going to have the privilege of hearing from a client of the Brain Injury Support Services program. He worked with our Greenville office and has been successfully employed for a while now. So would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Andy.
Hi, Andy. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Let's start by talking a little bit about what challenges you were facing before starting with the Brain Injury Support Services program.
I was unsure about what I was unsure about what type of job I could get with my abilities, and I was not sure where to start or who would hire me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's common for many folks after adjusting to a brain injury or some other kind of disability. But what services and supports in the BIS program were most helpful to you in overcoming that challenge?
The counselors worked with me and found my strengths, and they discussed what type of job I would like with my abilities, and we found we worked together and found me one.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your job. What are you doing now, and how has life changed since you started working?
I have been working at Young's Physical Therapy for over 4 years now.
Wow.
And yeah, and I clean and connect with the customers and employees, and I'm thankful to BIS because they helped me find a job and continue to support me.
That's awesome. We're so happy that you are, successfully employed, and we wish you continued success at your job. And just want to thank you again for sharing your story with us and your experience in the program.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. So yeah, as you could hear from Andy himself, he's been working for 4 years now, and he didn't share this during the time that we had recorded. He prepared some answers that he had rehearsed a little bit, but he told me, also that it's just meant a lot to him to be included in the staff meetings that they have, and to get to work with all the clients who come into the physical therapy office where he works. So yeah, it's been a big help for him to be working and to be reintegrated kind of in his community. Are there any other questions that have come up in the last few minutes that we can
Yes, we
chat
do
through?
have a question in the chat. So,
Okay.
the question is, do you have any recommendations on how to deal with an existing employment on extended leave without anything in writing and uncertain about the ability to return to work when?
Okay, sorry. So the question is extended leave and being unsure what.
Without so extended leave to existing employment without anything in writing and uncertain about the ability to return to work and when.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, that's a really good question. I might toss that one to Subrea, since she would be kind of, again, that EIPD perspective on that. I'm not sure. I know that y'all might work more with people who are in that process of leave. But yeah, it's a good question.
Okay, she's raising her hand. Jenny, you want to explain further on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think I was a bit confused when I joined this overall because I'm on leave from a stroke.
Mm.
And I worked in a public school. Um, and I feel like your program would be helpful to me if I got accepted, but uh, I don't know how to say this. Yeah, but there's the school district, has accepted my extended leave, and it keeps changing and keeps getting extended. And I currently it was agreed that I couldn't work for the rest of this school year. But I don't know about my situation in the fall, and I don't know how to even deal with the school district.
Mhm.
Is that does that
Yeah.
clarify?
No, that's helpful. I think maybe the best thing would be if we could connect offline and talk more about, your personal like situation and how we could get you connected to EIPD to start services with them, and then maybe get referred to the Brain Injury Support Services program. Let me go back. Do you want to take down maybe my email address, and
Yes.
maybe send me some of your contact information, and then I can connect with you off of this call, and we can maybe talk more specifically about how we can support you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Are there any other questions or any other things that we can chat through? Well, if not, I'll just, I'll put this slide and then Subrea's slide up next with our contact info. And please do feel free to take down our information and reach out if there's anything that we can help with. But thank you so much for your time and for joining, the presentation today. And thank you to Bianca for inviting us to present about vocational readiness and integrating in the community through employment.
And if anybody has any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat, mute your mics. Um, if not, I just want to thank everybody for coming here today and attending this webinar on the last day of Brain Injury Awareness Month. I really want to thank our two presenters today. They put a lot of work into this process. It has been a team effort. I want to give a shout out to Molly also. So we've had meetings putting this together, and this whole group is really passionate about this. There's been a lot of brainstorming, and we are going to build off of this. So we want to thank you guys for all attending this today. This will be recorded and shared, so share it with as many people as possible. Just mark your calendar because we're going to do the same thing next year, and the year after that, and the year after that. And we are working on some in-person events also. So if you guys don't have any more questions or concerns, we guys want you to enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Take some allergy medicine. There's pollen season, but thank you guys so much for your time.
Have a great day, everyone.
Have a good one, everybody.